like, who are you? Where'd you come from? And why are you doing this?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the Instagram videos actually came second. I do most of my content on TikTok. That's where it all starts. But that's just where the biggest audience is for me. I am a nutritionist. I have studied nutrition, holistic health, and wellness the last few years. And I run a company called USA Medical. We specialize in plant-based medicines like CBD, CBG. We do ashwagandha, turmeric, all that kind of stuff. But really, I'm just somebody who wants to actually heal people and like make people feel better. I think of myself as like a bit of a holistic like healer in the sense that like I'm not like a guru and praying, meditation over people, but I think that there are very simple and actionable things that we can all do to make our health so much better. You seem like a very fit guy. I'm sure there's a lot that you know about that just, simple actionable changes that people can do to make themselves so much healthier. So that's what I'm trying to do out here.
Excellent. No, I love it. And, probably the algorithm is what brought me to you.
Yeah.
But lately, just a little bit of background for me. I released a book talking about my struggles with Crohn's disease, my habits and my behavior leading up to my diagnosis, my diet and everything detailed in there. What I did after my diagnosis, which, you can imagine is somebody tells you have a lifelong illness that's going to, it was a spiral. It was a mess. So, and then detailing my recovery, because right now I'm in remission and off of drugs.
Wow.
So I made some severe change. I was convinced that the sick Krys only existed in this reality, that he was sick. So I uprooted everything I knew. I used to be a bodybuilder, and then slowly over time, I was a workaholic. I got addicted to money, trying to make more of it, and really lost sight of what it meant for me to be human, And then when I saw your videos, you were touching on things that really, like waking up at sunrise, going to bed at sunset, and getting out there barefoot, really what it means to be human. And the whole reason I wrote my book is to help as many people as possible. I'd have the printed version for free if I could, but that's, we're just printing money. But yeah, so I started this podcast because I know that there are people out there that are hurting. And more importantly, they're convinced that what they have is incurable.
Right.
If you Google it, it's incurable. Absolutely. Right? Yeah. You go to there's communities saying things are incurable. But what that does to somebody is it really sentences them to a life where they're a prisoner rather than a warrior. You can't, how are you going to warrior, for a fight you can't win? That doesn't make sense. You got to be a warrior for something you can win and believe you can win. That's the important part.
It's that identification with your own disease, right? It's that saying that whenever you make an I am statement, you've already lost. Like, I am sick. Well, no, you're not. Like, your body might be sick or you might have a disease, but you are not sick. You are human. Let's be human,
Yeah, I love the mentality of it. And I can see where people get a little bit taken aback because if they're sick and they say, I'm not sick, well, they're still sick. You know what I mean? They're still like something's wrong with them. Sure. So it's not a miracle, but rather a mindset that'll actually glass half full, like glass half empty. It's really your perspective on how you're looking at it. Plus, one way of looking at it dooms you. The other one gives you every single reason to fight for your survival, And
I learned pretty recently. I was speaking with a Buddhist teacher, and he said that if you ask a Buddhist if they're sick, when they are sick, they'll say, "I'm getting better minute by minute." Right? It's not. Yeah. So just don't identify with that negative. There's no reason. I mean, of course, like I said, the body can be sick, but it's that identification that like. No, I'm getting better. No, I am healing. I am healing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not identifying with that glass half empty,
Yeah, absolutely. No. So what advice do you have for somebody who is sick, is at their wit's end, looking online for solutions? What is one thing that you can give to somebody, or maybe it's a couple, but something for that switch to flip?
Yeah, well, first thing we need to do is identify what the problem is. Saying I am sick means nothing, right?
Nothing.
We can be sick with mental diseases, with physical, emotional. You can be sick with a lot of things. So first things first is let's identify what's actually wrong, and that goes for nutrition, that goes for health, that goes for, like I said, spiritual, mental, whatever. What's wrong? Well, once you identify what's wrong, now you have actually a really clear action plan on how to fix it, right? Because the moment you know what's wrong, then you know how to. You can't fix something before you diagnose it. It's like a car. My car is broken. Well, everything in the car works except for the alternator. So it's just one part that doesn't work, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So,
what noise does it make? Can we take it for a drive? Yeah. Exactly. There's a lot of work. Okay. Right.
So identifying what the actual problem is, and that is easier said than done for some people. But let's just say, for this instance, you wake up every morning with a stomach ache, right? I'm sick. I have a stomach ache. I don't know. Well, you can go through and start actually writing down data of your life to figure out where you're going wrong. Because without data, without information, you can't know what's wrong. When you go to a doctor, the worst thing you can do is walk in and say, I have stomach pains. And he says, well, what's wrong? You're like, I don't know. My stomach hurts all day. That doesn't help, right? So Get some actual data on what's wrong. Start writing down. Well, every single night before, at 10 p.m. I have a cookie. Every single, morning I have a cup of coffee. And then you start to learn your routines and your patterns, and you can start changing things to see what might be affecting that bit of health. Like I said, you have that evening cookie every night. Try not having the cookie one night and seeing if you wake up feeling better. If you don't, well, it's not the cookie. You can keep eating it. If you do, then that's the problem. It's just getting that actual data and figuring out what's actually wrong. Before you can fix anything, you need to know what's wrong. So,
excellent. So, do you feel like journaling is one of the number one things? Yeah,
absolutely.
So, step one in my recovery was journaling. And I just bought a brand new one because I'm going to teach people how I journal.
Yeah.
And maybe then they can have something to, go off of.
Yeah.
But for me, really interesting enough, I started journaling and then I noticed patterns in my behavior. Mm-hmm. I noticed that, every Friday, even though regardless of how intense or how stressful my work week was, I would get stoned and eat way too much food,
for sure.
Yeah. And then binge watch Netflix. And I would have a terrible Saturday, and then a very depressing Sunday. Sometimes I wouldn't even journal because I would be stuck on that couch. So identifying that I was in a rut was huge, and journaling, I think, helped tremendously for it. One thing I do want to touch on is what are your views on microdosing, psychedelics, when somebody's trying to really figure out a problem or figure out what's going on in their life?
Mm-hmm. Well, right now the research regarding psychedelic therapy involving ketamine, involving mushrooms, involving LSD, there is so much promising research. And even if you Google LSD dosages, there's a Healthline, an actual Healthline article that says LSD is safe in certain, in 150 microgram dosages. So it's there's a lot of people right now saying that they're safe, for usage. So what I will answer is that I stick with the research, and the research is currently showing that it can be used for incredible benefit and recovery. But it's how it's used is very important. I would never recommend anyone that is struggling with anything mentally, physically, spiritually to do a psychedelic on their own. In whatever, microdose all the way up to megadose, I would say starting with a therapeutic dose where, we are with someone who's trained in ketamine therapy, in LSD therapy, and you take it with them so they can guide you on that trip because, they are incredibly powerful and they have, just a mountain of things that could happen when you're on a psychedelic. So my really tight-knit answer is I see huge benefit for them in the future, but I think it needs to be done in the right context and with the right people.
Sure. Yeah, I'm all for it. Unfortunately for me, there was a barrier to entry cost, because this stuff gets very expensive. So
absolutely.
I, as a responsible adult who is basically at rock bottom and has been going through, and I was even told by my GI that there's no reason you should be interested in ketamine therapy for your pain. Here are some more opiates. I was, I know that you or I can't recommend anything as medical advice,
Right.
but for the people who are naturally curious, I think it's something I want to hammer home is learn as much as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And for me, that meant growing my own mushrooms. I committed to it. So I had a part-time hobby, you know, and it's something that actually helped build more of my character, like build more of myself, and committing to something that's fun like that, you know, it in it itself had an effect on my consciousness, on my being, like prior to even the drug. But I have an entire year of journaling and then an entire year of journaling with microdosing. And the difference was incredible. I was able to really zoom out of myself, look at patterns, and it gave me enough motivation to say, you know what? I don't have ADHD. Why am I taking Adderall? You know, I don't need that stuff to make me work anymore. I don't need this caffeine. Let me see what life is like without it. Because I had this vision that said, you know what, tomorrow, what if somebody snapped their fingers and we're all naked in a forest and there's no such thing as like TV, there's all of it's gone. What's the meaning of life? And I remember it's like survival, thrival, helping family, community, all these key things. And, you know, it really cascaded to this event. I quit my job. I got in shape. I started this podcast. I want to talk to as many people as possible.
Yeah,
so
it's great.
You know, and that's why I reached out to you, man. I feel that in your videos. I see it in your eyes, you know, and I admire you. You've got a company going, you've got a great following, and there's nothing in your videos that's like offensive, you know, or anything. Your take on things is just great. One thing I do want to ask you about is sun gazing, because I try it in the mornings and I'm like, what am I doing wrong here?
Okay.
You know?
So sun gaze, here's the thing. It's like, there's no science to it, but there is some science to it. So first and foremost, never look at the sun when it's like daytime. Like,
okay.
Right. Like the only when we talk about sun gazing, what we're talking about is the half an hour period during sunrise and sunset. That's the only window that anyone would recommend you do sun gazing in. And that's because of, you know, we all know how the earth and the sun move, and when it's sunset, the sun is the furthest away from the earth, right? Or at least your location on the earth. So what all you want to do is, first of all, take off your glasses or contacts, because glass filters UVB rays out. And people will argue with me online and say, no, it doesn't. It does. I mean, it just absolutely does. There's all kinds of science that shows that glass that does not allow UVB rays to pass. So those are the good rays you want, and those are the rays that are going to actually help strengthen your eyes, reduce cataracts, and then I talk about your pineal gland being super important. That ends up being put in the category of like pseudoscience, and people hate when I talk about it, but so
I love it.
Right. So we can talk about it a little bit, but for sun gazing in particular, all you're going to want to do is take your glasses off, and then right when the sun is kind of setting, look directly at the sun. And the first time you do it for like 5 seconds, like max. Seriously, your eyes need time to learn this. And it's not just like, oh, if I don't practice, you know, no, you need to practice, you need to put work into it. So that first time, do it for 5 seconds, and then the next day, try it for 10 seconds, and so on and so forth. But you'll start to realize that, like, over time, you can actually really look at the sun for a while, and there's this really cool, like, white haze that comes around it, and like this, it's really pretty to like look at the sun and see how the colors change. I mean, if you've done psychedelics, I'm sure you know how much sunlight affects how your eyes see things, and when you're outside, things looks, you know, so different. So sun gazing is kind of like a form of like psychedelic that doesn't really need any drug. You can just sit there and look at the sun and watch the world kind of change.
I know, it's beautiful. I mean, I've been I make it a point to take my dog out for a walk at sunrise and sunset. He loves it. He'll be crying at the door when he does it. So, what are other recommendations that you have for like ancestral habits that maybe we can just summarize them? Because sun gazing, to me, that's like watching a sunset. Anybody can do that, and they don't even know that there's benefits to it. But like, what do you think maybe the 5 major things that humans got to go back to? Otherwise, we're doomed.
Stranger things. Well, I'm a huge grounding guy. I did a video recently on TikTok about grounding, just taking off your shoes and touching the earth. The earth has a negative charge to it, and free radicals in our bodies have positive charge to them. So when you actually touch the earth, it neutralizes those free radicals. And I have a video on TikTok about oxidative stress and how free radicals cause oxidative stress. That was never a concern thousands of years ago, right? They were just always touching the earth. So free radicals were not a problem 1,000 years ago, where they are now. So touching the earth is huge. If you're in a climate where it's snowy or whatever, taking a bath is kind of the same thing. It's just getting into an earth-like negative charge. So the water's great. The ocean's phenomenal. Sand is phenomenal. So
wow. Oh, I actually didn't know that about the bath.
Yeah.
Is probably another reason Epsom salt baths feel so good, right?
Oh, well, okay. Right? Let's make that number 2. Magnesium is just, it's one of the most vital minerals for life. And everyone will fight me on this online and say, you got to talk to your doctor before taking magnesium. No, you need magnesium. Like this isn't like a drug. This isn't like, taking, Xanax. We need magnesium. Right. And early humans that were in the ocean, we absorb magnesium topically as much as we do when you ingest it. So being in the ocean was like how we got all of our magnesium daily. Whereas now we're not in the ocean every day. So what can you do? Well, you can take magnesium baths, Epsom salt baths, which feel incredible. And like you said, when you take one, you're like, wow, this feels amazing. Yeah. Because your body needs the magnesium, you do the bath and it's like, finally, I have this mineral I need. And you can also take magnesium supplements. I always recommend magnesium glycinate. It's the best for absorption. And it's the highest bioavailability. So your body can digest it the best. So magnesium.
Is that the one that can get to the brain also? Okay, yeah. I've read some stuff where people are kind of winding down in the evening, and magnesium is, good to take at that time. Would you suggest a timing if you're doing supplements like magnesium? So
magnesium is the one supplement that I talk about that I say that there's no wrong way to do it because we just need it. And I know a guy who he takes the daily recommended dose of magnesium is like 400 milligrams, and that's based on nothing. I think.
Yeah,
just kind
exactly.
Of someone said that once. I know
random number.
5 grams a day, 5 grams internally. So 400 milligrams is the daily recommended. 1,000 milligrams is a gram. So he's taking 5,000 milligrams a day internally, and there's no negative effects. Your liver can process that out just fine, as long as you don't have kidney or liver conditions. So
I guess then that is when you would try to talk to your doctor, right?
And I always say that clear. People will be like, well, but I have a super rare kidney condition. Well, then this advice isn't really for you. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
If you have a condition,
everybody.
talk to your doctor. The advice that I give typically is just for the normal person living without chronic illness. If you have,
or mild chronic.
Right. If you have chronic illness, you have to talk to that's part of your life now. You have to talk to your doctor about things. So be smart and don't just do things because, someone online said to do it. Talk to your doctor about stuff like that.
And that's why I love we're having this conversation because, you get caught up on blog posts and things online and it's like, one person says this, the other person says that. Like,
right.
One person's thriving on a vegan diet. One person's thriving eating meat. One person's thriving eating cheeseburgers. Mm-hmm. Like, what do you do? It's but I think you're right. So somebody who's like journaling and trying to better their life, when they're trying to eat better whole sources of food, say we're doing Epsom salt baths, what kind of a diet do you recommend?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's make that number 3 on our list of 5 things then. Diet is huge, and what goes in comes out, right? So if you put garbage into your body, garbage comes out of your body. You need to give your body the proper input, and diet is the only input we have for our bodies. So I don't like talking about diet too much because it's like everyone has their own take on it. For me, I just want to make sure I get all of my building blocks. So all of my amino acids, I get my carbs, I get my fats, I get, and there's no bad building blocks. People will tell you that, avoid fat. Well, not necessarily. There's healthy fats and there's bad fats. People will say to avoid carbs. Well, no, you need carbs for energy, but just in moderation. And again, if you have like an insulin problem, well, yes, you need less carbs, but we still need carbs. And then protein, like I said, for all the different amino acids and such. And then micronutrients I'm really big on. When we eat like protein, we eat like steak, right? Or like chicken. Well, eating just the one part of the meat is really weird as far as human history goes. Like no one in human history like killed a cow and then only ate the porterhouse cut, right? Like
we ate the organs.
Right, organs. So organ meat for me is really big. People wince at organ meat or the idea of organ meat. It was normal for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's just not normal anymore. So my overall health take is just look for micronutrients, look for building blocks, and make sure you're getting all of them. Because if your diet does not include all of the nutrients you need, it's not a good diet. Okay,
so stop eating the Takis, stop drinking the soda, right? So all these Franken foods that might be hijacking our taste buds, periodically. When I first started eating liver, it was hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I crave it now, which is very bizarre. I'll know when it's time for me to have a couple of ounces of liver, and I don't do it every day because it's cost prohibitive. Like good meat it's expensive, man. Let's get real.
Well, liver is cheap. Honestly, liver is way cheaper than other meat just because, at least for me in my area, it's way cheaper just because people don't ever want to buy it. So I can find pretty decently cheap liver. Do you ever eat it raw?
Yeah. So that's how I eat it. I have a video of me showing people how to use a NutriBullet with a little bit of water and honey, and it's actually great.
Water, honey, liver. That's really great.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I just imagine, like I said, remember we're all teleported into the forest tomorrow, butt naked. What's the first thing we're doing? There's going to be a bunch of us that go foraging and collecting. Some of us are still going to be munching on leaves and sticks. Yeah. And then some of us we're going hunting.
We're going to hunt,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Alpha's going to eat that liver, and then we're going to carry that back home and have a barbecue, and that's how we're going to start dressing ourselves up in the skins. Well, rinse and repeat.
In that scenario, we're going to eat the organ meats before we even bring the slaughter back, right? Like us, the hunting party, we're going to eat the heart, we're going to eat the lungs, we're going to eat the testicles, we're going to eat it all out there, and then we'll bring the meat back for everyone else. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's the best part.
Yeah. So it brings up. So we're covering diet, and I know this is one we want to tread lightly, but I think globally we can say stop eating stuff that has all these multiple ingredients, powdered, flavored, food colorings, like remove all of those. Yeah. And basically start with raw or like whole foods based diet. Whether including meat or fish, eggs or dairy, that all depends on everybody, right? Yeah. And I'm sure ancestrally we had people who just didn't agree with us eating fish and stuff. And there was plenty of bread and grain and as we evolved stuff for them to survive on. Right. But to thrive, I think the best advice, right? Everybody listen to your body and stop with the foods that hijack your senses, disrupt your sleep, cause your body to have these inabilities to actually retain these micronutrients. Sometimes we're like excreting like crazy. Okay.
Right. And the easiest way to start is honestly, no refined sugars, and I mean like none, like zero tolerance with refined sugars. And if you want to eat Oreos and such, you can figure out a way to do it. But what I'm saying is for optimal health, no refined sugars and no seed oils. That's it, right? That's the two.
I definitely agree. Lately, there's a lot of exciting stuff coming out about seed oils that. Ooh, man, this, it reminds me of a couple of years ago when Game Changers came out, right? It's a documentary. Everybody went plant-based. Okay, now we're like undoing that. Everyone's kind of carnivore. Everyone's looking at ancestral dieting and we're villainizing the seed oils, and it's, but man, I like the same thing that happened with PETA. The gross side of farming came to light, and now we've got like real experts who are trying to make, like Sacred Cow. There's a documentary coming out on cow saving the planet if we did it right. I think doing it right is a part of it. Have you ever been to a farm?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Really? So
Yeah.
that's I'm making it a point to get out into a farm and do some volunteering because I really want to. Cool. Ultimately, I want to have some chickens, and get my own eggs in the morning. Yeah. Make sure they're eating bugs and not soy and other stuff. Absolutely. And get a little bit more in touch with nature. And then we're all faced with this dilemma in life. Like, killing an animal for me is going to be hard. Really, really hard. But if it meant survival. Yeah, we could do it. Yeah, and just like in the forest scenario, if a pack of Oreos fell from heaven, I think we'd all jump on it, right? And like, hey, man. But if you really deprive yourself of sweets for that long, like yesterday, I had a Girl Scout cookie, and I was like, yes, I remember what these are like. Yeah. I don't eat it every day, right?
But also, I mean, like, I have a sweet tooth. We all do, right? Like, I mean, I crave sugar, absolutely. You know what I mean? But it's like, you have to just learn how to curb that, I mean, apples are incredibly sweet. If you eat an apple, it's like, wow, that's so much sugar in there. But it's fructose. It's good for you. It's, your body can process it so much easier. So, yeah, I mean, we all have a sweet tooth. You can indulge the sweet tooth. Just try to find ways that are more natural,
Absolutely. So, let's see now. Maybe we can segue into tip number 3, like sleep. Well, how do you feel about sleep? Because we talked about, waking up, going to sunrise, and kind of minding what you're eating during the day. When we're sleeping, we don't have to worry about eating. We don't have to worry about, getting up, late alarms. Like, what do you feel is ideal for humans?
Sleep is so important. And as a society, as a culture, we've decided that sleep isn't important. Like, we're all on that grind set. We're all getting up early, trying to get, more hours in for whatever. Sleep is so important. So your body only recovers during sleep. That is when your body recovers. So if you are waking up tired, if you're waking up groggy, you are not getting enough sleep. That is the most simple metric for, are you getting enough sleep? Are you tired in the morning? Yes. Well, then you're not getting enough sleep, And there could be some, like I said, nutrient factors. There could be other factors. But in general, grogginess, tiredness, you need more sleep. Okay. So how do you get more sleep? Well, you need to prioritize a sleep window. And the best way you can get better sleep is to go to bed and wake up at the exact same time every day. Never, ever, ever change. Not for the weekend, not for your days off. Never, ever, ever change. Because the more your body can learn a cycle, the more it can understand, okay, at 2 a.m. I'm rebuilding, muscle tissue. At 4 a.m., I'm handling REM sleep and getting into the brain. At 6, and it can start building those cycles. And you'll start to realize, actually, when you do those cycles, that you dream way more because your body can start putting those dream windows in during that REM sleep. And allow that mind expansion as well. So, yeah, I mean, sleep is so huge. Just be on a schedule and stick to it.
Excellent. So that can kind of bleed into scheduling your day, right? Because part of journaling is like creating a healthy habit and then just trying to do it at the same time every day. Yeah. So, I mean, this stuff is starting to sound really easy, right? Just set an alarm. Yeah, it's probably the hardest thing some people will ever do, Really, not turning to the TV, not turning to their phones and scrolling, to really get rid of that blue light. When the sun's down, go for a nice walk when the sun is setting, take a look at it, but then your day is over. Yeah. I think the society expectations have a lot to do with it. Work expectations. We're caffeinated, we're aggravated, we're angry, and we're just, there seems to be no way out of this rut, and then people overcompensate on the weekends, right? They go out, they spend all their money, they get drunk, they want to escape it. So, I mean, to tell somebody, oh, just spend your weekends creating the life you want, let's get real, okay? I think this will transition to my next point about being human. Do you think community, how important is it to be a part of something?
It's everything. If you don't have a community, you're not a human anymore, right? An isolated human is not a thriving human. I live in Los Angeles. It is the easiest place to have no community, right? It's the easiest place to be surrounded by thousands and thousands and millions of people and not know a single person. And what I realized when I first got here, it was the height of my anxiety was when I didn't have anyone to talk to. And just not even about anxious things or stressors, but just talk to. Just, how was your day? What's going on today? How are you? Having people that not just ask you questions, but actually care how you're doing, that is everything. You can't be a successful human without a strong community around you.
Excellent. Yeah. And then contributing to the community is fun. And it looks like it's all sorts of ways, right? Some people go to church, some people have family gatherings, sporting events, or like advice, if they have little kids, taking them to games and stuff. So yeah, I believe it's huge. It's just we're in this like post-pandemic era, and then people are like, I don't know about you, but I love the social distance. I love my space. It's a little bit less crowded everywhere, but I feel like something's missing, just the other weekend, I went to the movies with Samantha, my fiance. We were in the middle of the theater at an IMAX show, the best seats in the house, and it was almost empty, And I felt like there's something missing, man. People need to get back out, right? And I understand it's unsafe for some people or they're paranoid, but I think this is what we're starting to break the ice a little bit, right? It's like starting this conversation. So we're getting out there. We're looking at the sunset. We're looking at the sunrise. We're starting to eat more ancestral stuff. We're ditching all the crap, right? Yeah. We're starting to sleep better, and we're starting to get real actionable stuff. I've got an Apple Watch. Do you have any, do you recommend fitness trackers or anything?
I have a Oura ring that I wear. Do you know what these are?
Oh, cool. Yeah. I was, when we get married, I was going to make that my wedding band for Samantha and I. I love it.
I had the Apple Watch for a while, but I think the Oura ring does a much better job at just tracking. I've had a lot of problems with Oura, and I did a video on TikTok about how they're driving me crazy. They have just bad customer support, but the ring is great. They do a really, really good job with the product. So when it works fantastic.
Sweet. And then what kind of metrics do you think people should be looking at? Like, for example, I weigh myself every day. And then like at the end of the month, I like to review and just like see if I can look at for like patterns or something, because like the more we can have an idea of what's going on, and look at it on paper, the more we can kind of start to create a solution or a strategy and a plan, right? Instead of like, what did I weigh last week?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, more data is always what you want. And, I'm also a business owner, so my brain thinks in like data and in numbers and how, acquisitions and what my costs are and like all these different like data points. The only way I can know how to improve my company is if I have a ton of data on everything. How can you make a decision unless you know if what's already happening is or is not working? So same thing with the human body. The ring is great because it just tracks so many data points that I can't track myself. I think resting heart rate is huge. Blood pressure is huge. If you can track oxygen levels and make sure that you're actually oxygenated. Weight obviously is a good metric, but weight can fluctuate so much. I mean, as you know, just on how much water you had that day or how much salt you had that week or whatever. Like, so weight is good, but just I think the journal of just writing down how you feel is honestly a really good starting point for data gathering, because the only person who can figure out how you feel is you. So writing down exactly how you feel every day and like be specific, like, oh, my head hurts. It's, above my left eye is where the main pain is or whatever. And start really getting specific about what's going on with your health every day. That's going to give you the most insight into how to live better.
Excellent. No, yeah, I think you're right. One of the you mentioned about weight, and yeah, I'm about 175 pounds, and I fluctuate all the way up to 180, and sometimes all the way down to 172, depending on how active I am or what I've been eating. But the idea of that being a habit, and like part of my routine, it's so automatic now, and now I'm passively collecting all of this data that it'd be fascinating to look at, compare from this year to the year that I was sick.
Totally.
The year before that. And, eventually I think we'll be able to predict a few things, with like these projections moving forward.
Absolutely.
Speaking of predictions and projections, you and your company, what is your why? Why are you providing? Do you have a trajectory? Do you have somewhere you want to go with this? Like, where do you envision yourself?
Yeah, so the company was started just because it was the first thing to actually help me. I lived with a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and and that's due to environmental factors. That's due to how I grew up. That's due to a lot of different things. But when I first had CBD, when I first tried it, it was the first time that like I actually could feel my anxiety and stress like just kind of leave for a little bit. And I was like, okay, well, there's something here, you know? And I basically left a career behind to start selling CBD, because what I found was in the marketplace, especially here in California, CBD is very trendy, and most people selling CBD are selling it because it's trendy, and that means their products are just kind of junk. There's like 2 other CBD companies that I like, you know, that are actually selling decent CBD, and they're so expensive. So like my company is the only one that truly I would take, because like it's the best as far as quality goes, and it's the most affordable as far as, you know, anything else on the internet that is anywhere close to the same quality. So I really started it as a CBD. I mean, I've expanded into other lines, to CBG and into, you know, vitamins. You have to do that as a company to stay successful. But the core of the company has always been and will always be CBD as a plant-based medicine.
Great. Yeah, I love that you mention it, because CBG is really the reason that I got off of the couch in a flare. Like, wow. I was handed a bottle by Chad. He's one of the 2 brothers that own Dakota Organics. They have this like black soil rich farm that after generations of like regular agriculture organically, they decided to grow hemp. And they created CBD, they created this CBG, and he gave me a bottle, you know, when I had, he heard I had Crohn's, and he said, you know, we've had a lot of people with gut issues like do well on this stuff. I kid you not, the last flare I had, now flares usually last 10 or 12 days. Like they're drawn out, it's a healing process, it gets worse, it gets better. You usually take prednisone and all these like steroidal anti-inflammatories and bowel rest. In 4 days of taking 2 tinctures of CBG twice a day, my flare was gone.
Crazy.
And I was like, wait a second.
I believe it, yeah.
Maybe it wasn't a flare. You know, that's what I'm thinking to myself. Yeah. And then, so I start searching, and CBG, like the mother of the cannabinoids, like I read a lot of interesting information about this, and I just basically said the G stands for gut. You know, like if you got gut issues, this stuff is probably great. I've had CBD in the past. Yeah. You know, I've tried it, but I thought nothing of it. You know, I was just like, yeah, I'm sore. It's some, I guess I never had a need for it. But CBG, man, it changed everything. So one of the reasons that I wanted to start spreading this word is because a lot of the culture around Crohn's disease and IBD, they're so medication centric. Totally. You know, and if I was recently, I had to leave a group because they were telling me not to speak of not being on medicine.
Wow.
Like, avoid talking about it. Yeah, I know, right? Because Crohn's is incurable. According to, well, look at me. Right. I must be a fluke, right? So, regardless, like the CBG for me was like fundamental. And now anyone that I help, I include like, okay, let's start journaling, meditation, but take the CBG, put it under your tongue sublingually and meditate. Yeah. You know? And this is just something that's like, you feel much better afterwards. Like it's real stuff. So, do you see, recently there was like a few new isolates of CBD or like, you know, from hemp extract. And I think the science is advancing tremendously. Like, do you see yourself branching into those newer ones also as your company grows?
Absolutely. I mean, I just launched our first CBG line back in January. That was an exciting launch for me because I've been eyeing CBG, CBN, and CBC for a while. You know, there's a lot of research that, like, I mean, the IBD thing, the Crohn's thing, like, there's research that's been around for a couple of years now that I've been like super interested in. But CBG has been, and the other ones, minor cannabinoids are very expensive. That's just where we're at right now. Industrial farming of hemp for CBD has become very commonplace. And the price of CBD has dropped drastically over the last 3 years. Just to put it in perspective, for me to source a kilo of, let's say, CBD isolate 3 years ago, that we're looking at $15,000 per kilo about. Now it's down to like $400, $500. So it's like just insanity price reduction because there's so many more hemp farms. Well, what's happened is all those hemp farms are now producing CBD specific products, and CBG is such a different thing altogether. You have to harvest hemp plants at a very young age, and you have to do a very different harvesting process in order to keep the CBG preserved during the distillation. So a big challenge for my company and the companies that work with CBG is getting some of those hemp farms and our hemp farms to convert to be more CBG friendly. Part of that conversion is a massive loss of money up front because you're not able to harvest as much of the CBG from the plant because it's so young. You don't get the mature plant. So all that to say, a year ago when I first wanted to get into CBG, a bottle of, let's just say, like 1,000 milligram CBG oil, I mean, seriously, like $500, $600 to get a bottle. Whereas now, I mean, it's on my website for like, I think I have it. I think my 1,000 milligram is like $79. So like, I mean, cool. Huge price improvement over the last year. So that's why now is the time I wanted to get into it. It's still expensive and it's still difficult, but I want to be one of the first people doing lab certified organic CBG at a great price point.
Great. I'd love for you to meet the brothers, Chad and Nate. Their farm is amazing. I plan to, the whole goal was to sell enough CBG so they can replant, next year. And they have a great solve, they have a great topical, and I know I'm probably talking about a competitor here, but if you're all like, but it's okay, right? Because at the end of the day, you still support independent farmers, right? Because they could potentially provide you with what you need,
absolutely,
at a low cost point. But I just wanted to touch a little bit about the price for that, because it seems a little bit like, wow, $80, that's a lot of money to like spend on something. I kid you not, I take this stuff and it, like, any GI symptoms I have, it just knocks it down. Yeah. And that to me, like, I curled up on a couch with a heating pad, I'd pay you like all my hundreds just to make it go away.
I get that, yeah.
You see what I mean? So it's like, I hope one day that we can get it down to something that's $30 for, a month's supply.
Absolutely.
Something that's cheap and worth it. But more importantly, I just hope that, people are more aware of that, the power of this stuff, instead of immediately going to their drugstore to buy a pill, to just like really consider, holistic alternatives.
Right.
Good.
Real quick, the other thing on CBG I wanted to hit on real quick is just the fact that, and I'm not saying this, you know what I mean? I'm not saying this, but I'm saying it. There's all kinds of research behind this, and I know of 2 people who were given a terminal diagnosis of cancer, did nothing but started taking CBG and CBD, and are now in remission of that cancer. So I'm not saying that, but it happened,
Right. No, I recently, have you heard of German New Medicine? It's like the study by Dr. Hamir.
No.
He basically says that all of disease is manifestations of unresolved conflicts in your life. And like, I got into remission and I knew nothing about Dr. Hamir and his stuff. But part of my getting into remission, part of my book and my program was that, like, I identified that I was addicted to Adderall and then I was like substance abusing constantly, And no matter what it was, so I did some more digging, and then I had I went to a yurt with my fiance, and we got unplugged for everything. I took some edible marijuana, and I realized I never feel good enough. It was this big epiphany for me psychologically, and to have that happen to me, like. It changed like the way I view things now. And I called my brother, who I haven't talked to in 7 or 8 years. I called my mom and explained to her, like, hey, I just grew up really quick.
Yeah.
By the way, like, yeah. So along the path, after unplugging and after having this spiritual, mystical experience and this epiphany, I thought, like, okay, this is great. Now I'm going to be ready to fight Crohn's. And then it disappeared. My condition just went away, gone, And so it wasn't until recently I found about Dr. Hamir and his research, and he says that you could take any patient, tell me what cancer you have, and he'll tell you what the conflict is, where to look.
Crazy.
And like for him, he had, so these are like connections and correlations that are like almost undeniable, similar to what you had with your, the CBG being like almost a miracle.
Right.
Right. but like what's going on psychologically, you know, and for this cancer. And I believe in science. I really, really do. But I also lean into the mystery because I have no idea why I'm better. And that's the whole point of the show, is trying to figure out, like, backtrack what happened. So like, you know, my question to you, like, have you ever overcome something? Like, what's the hardest thing in your life personally that you ever had to overcome? You know, like, do you suggest people like really take away from their life to go and fix something that's really bugging them?
Yeah. So for me, I think one of my routine problems or historical problems is that if I don't stay present, if I don't stay like in my body in this moment, it's so easy for my brain to go like way in the future and like way in the past at the same time, and just like be crazy anxious and stressed kind of about nothing. And like I'll go through my whole day being anxious about like something that I said a year ago and how that's going to affect my future, and like I'll be in my head about stuff.
Sure.
So you know, for me, the thing that solved a lot of those problems was just learning how to be present, and a lot of that is meditation. A lot of that is breath work, and learning how to just be satiated in the moment. But for anyone else, I mean, struggling with anything chronic or terminal or historic in their lives, you know, figuring out what is a reoccurring stressor, figuring out what is a reoccurring problem, that is the hardest part to do, because, you know, recognizing that I was anxious, you know, we all say we have anxiety or whatever. For me, it was a very different thing, you know, and, you know, I think a lot of it's very trendy to have some form of mental illness, right? And you know,
unfortunately,
say like, oh, I'm ADD, or oh, I have, you know, bipolar, or these are not things to be proud of, right? Like I haven't talked about this before ever with anybody, but I had a therapist for a while who said that I likely have bipolar 2. This was years ago. And for a while, I really identified with that. I'm like, oh, I'm a bipolar person. I am bipolar. Some days are good, some days are bad. And it wasn't until like years later that I was like, no, I am not bipolar. Like I had, you know, bipolar tendencies, but that can be solved, that can be fixed. And that really was just a manifestation of stress and anxiety. So
right, your behavior fit a pattern,
exactly.
And then but owning that label, just like, oh, well, it looks like from our colonoscopy, you had extra gut cells and polyps, and there's inflammation. So you have Crohn's, an incurable disease.
Yeah.
Like, well, no, I have a lot of inflammation and gut cell. You know what I mean? It's like
symptoms.
I have symptoms, right? And but really like holding on to that label, and like I love the discussion of mental health. I love all of that, because being aware of this and actually just saying it, getting it off your chest. Like I don't think enough guys out there that are like, they're bashful to talk about it, because you got to be tough. You know, you got to suck it up, man. It's like, life's harder. You're a white male. Right. You know, life is so easy. And it's like, guys, no, it's not. And it's okay to talk about this stuff. But yeah, for your personal struggles and getting over that, and you owning it and saying like, okay, I'm not doing it. Like, how did that, was that like a big relief for you? Was it an epiphany that you had, or?
No, it wasn't a relief, because when you identify with something for so long, and for so long you say, I am a bipolar person, the moment you realize you're not, well, okay, who am I? If I don't have my disease, if I don't have the mental disorder that I thought I did, well, then who am I? And it was a process of like relearning who I am, and I'm still doing that. I'm still learning who I am, and like, you know, it's that I'm nowhere near enlightened. You know what I mean? Like I have a lifetime ahead of me to go. But sorry about that. But
you're fine.
You know, I think anybody can start with the simple action of asking themselves who they are, and recognizing that anything that they put in that list that is negative is not them, and build from there.
Wow. Yeah. Very wise words. And I think, you know, a lot of people recently, they're kind of waking up to this stuff, right? There's like, hey, man, maybe the lockdown brought something out of them.
Yeah.
Maybe losing a loved one, maybe realizing that the relationship that they're in is not working, or realizing that they fall in love and they want to have a family and have kids. So there's all these like things that'll make you depressed, things that create this anxiety. But personally, I feel like when I was working that very stressful job, I was going against myself, and if I didn't do something to correct it, life was just going to correct itself. Mm-hmm. And I felt like when I was diagnosed with Crohn's, that was life correcting itself because I was dragging my feet, but I got sat down for a real moment, and I had plenty of chances to do the right thing, but eventually I hit rock bottom, and it sucks to be in that vulnerable position, but at the same time, it is very relieving.
And I'll say that this is kind of leans into the more like metaphysical side of things, but something that really helped me, and it's not concrete, it doesn't really work, but I'll say it anyways. Anything that you can declare about yourself, anything that you can say I am, like anything you can make an I am statement about is not you, actually. Like, I am sick. Well, no, you have symptoms of something. You are a conscious being, right? I am angry. Well, no, you are exhibiting feelings of anger, but you are a conscious being, right? Like, remembering that you are a conscious, eternal being, and anything you experience is not you. It's just a symptom of reality. That helps kind of separate me from all these things that I thought were me.
That is great. I was just watching. Interesting enough, I'm very curious about religions lately, and I just want to know as much as I can about all of them. Yeah. And it was kind of like Hindu was last night's episode, and I was looking and like, oh man, they really believe that they're all one energy, just experiencing life, and then all these things are kind of like side effects. And if you're going against your life path, things get complicated for you. Life gets harder than it should be. Yep. So it's kind of like. My advice to anyone struggling with their job and at this point where they're exhibiting anger and anxiety and fear and they're medicating themselves to continue to do this vicious cycle is stop and care about yourself first. Put yourself first.
That's great.
Great. Well, you want to talk about anything else, man?
No, this is great. I appreciate you having me on the show. This has been really fun.
Yeah, I would love to have you on again, man. We're hitting the hour mark, and I'm on a budget right now, and it's like 1 hour at a time, man. That was great. Any last words? I mean, do you want to shout out your company again?
Yeah, I mean, if you would be so kind to check out usamedicalshop.com, I'll make you guys a code. What's a good code for you and your viewers to try out some products?
I don't like gut health, gut check.
Gut health. Gut check. We can do. All right. We'll do gut check. GUTCHECK. That'll be for 35% off your first purchase. Check out usamedicalshop.com for lab certified CBD, CBG, and all vitamins and supplements.
Excellent. Thank you so much, man. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
You as well.
Take care. Bye.